Hi, I'm Larry Waters from SnusCENTRAL.org, and tonight we're going to be talking primarily about an amazing snus, Islay Whisky Snus by Conny Andersson. I want to explain to you why I feel Islay Whisky Snus is probably the most significant snus release, definitely of this year and probably of the last few years. Most importantly, I want to talk about Islay, but I also want to talk about the man behind Islay, Conny Andersson. He's the brand. By Conny Andersson is the brand of Islay whiskey. There are going to be other snoozes coming out by Conny Andersson, and I'm even going to tell you a little bit about him later. But that's the key. Now, Islay whiskey in the portion version was released on January 7th of 2014, this year, if you're watching this in 2014. A white portion version of Islay whiskey is going to be released tentatively in September of 2014. And a very unique version of Islay Whiskey Loose, which I know a lot of you are interested in, is going to be released this summer, actually, the summer of 2014. Now, Conny, he's a perfectionist, and the loose Islay whiskey reflects some of his OCD, if you will. Conny has picked 12 stores that he trusts, and he's going to be giving them whiskey casks full of loose Islay Whisky Snus. When the customers come in for their snus, they're going to actually scoop it out, put it in the box, and the owner of the store will sign the box for the customer. Very unique. Now, when I talked to my friend Mo Uns, who's a snus legend and manager of the SnusCENTRAL.com snus store, his first question for me was, are they coming out with a loose version in a can that we can sell over the internet? Or are we going to get a cask and have to portion it out into boxes before shipping? He was excited about that concept. It would be labor intensive, but he would get to sign his name on it, and Mo is very egocentric, let's say. I haven't clarified that with Conny yet. I hopefully we'll know more in the near term. I am pretty sure that one way or another there is going to be a version of Islay Whiskey Loose available on the internet, or Conny would never hear the end of it and his email boxes would explode. So let's look forward to that at this point. And let's get back to Conny. When it comes to cigar and snus tobacco, Conny is one of the top experts in the world. He's not only an expert, he's a tobacco artist, in that he doesn't paint with a brush, obviously, but he makes his snus by carefully blending different tobaccos that from around the world that complement each other, and special ingredients which also complement the tobacco and vice versa. Conny, when he was with Swedish Match, you'll know Conny by, if you remember, the Carduce Superior editions that used to come out every year from Swedish Match. Conny designed all the Carduce editions, and when Conny left Swedish Match in 2012, that was the last year that Swedish Match produced the Carduce Superior blend offering. Details to Conny are incredibly important, right down to the can. So let's talk about the can for a second. This is what I call a bar-worthy snus can, and I use that phrase in writing a lot, but let me actually explain it to you. If you walk in to a pub and want to make conversation, or into a meeting, or any social situation, and want a conversation starter, then a can of snus, which is bar worthy, is the best way to do that. Formerly, Swedish Match and PMI before them made a snus called 1847. And when Philip Morris was making it, it was in a beautiful embossed can. I have some in my collection just for the cans, they're so beautiful. And that was the original, to me, bar-worthy snus can. That has now been replaced to a large extent by the Islay Whisky can. First day with the new video camera, sorry. The can, the design is beautiful. It's a metal can. The lettering and the graphics are embossed on the can. It's not a flat can. If you go around the side of the can, you'll see what looks like stupid lighting, a tax stamp almost. This is on every can of Islay whiskey. It has the batch number. Batch number on this particular can is 002. I saved a few cans of that. That's one of the first batches he made. Batch 6 is the most recent that I have in my snus chiller. I'm not sure if anything's come out since then because I still have batch 6 left. The can is also incredibly well sealed. It's a rubberized plastic almost, has a rubbery feel to it. And the snus, it will keep the snus fresh. The snus has an expiration date effectively of 1 year. I personally would probably throw it in the freezer at about 7-8 months just to be safe, because of the way it's made. Safe meaning it doesn't lose its flavor. But it's a great snus in a great can. This snus can't be, it's basically made the way that fine snus was made prior to 1981. That's when snus was, the tobacco was sweated very slowly, very carefully, so as not to harm the flavor. They used fire curing to do that. And it was slow fermented afterwards to bring the flavors together and make it a very powerful tasting and a powerful product. Unfortunately, or fortunately, snus has taken off so much that volume production of snus really started kicking up in 1981, and you need to use a quicker process. You can't take the time for fire curing and fermentation. And that's where air-cured tobacco and pasteurization, preferably steam pasteurization, has come into play now. It speeds up the process, and the products out today, they're well over 200. They're wonderful. Pasteurized, they're fine. It does really well, but there are a couple things that you can't recreate quite well. Islay's been out for 6 months, so there are plenty of reviews. A lot of you have tried it. I've written about it. I'm not gonna spit out my written reviews for you, but it's a wonderful tobacco-centric, earthy, little peaty, with the whiskey blended subtly in the background, and the smokiness to it. Now that's something that you can only get through fire curing. Liquid smoke only goes so far. Swedish Match is a master at it. Their recent release of General Variation Smoky Oak, which is another one of my favorites. The General the way they use the liquid smoke, it's incredibly close to the Islay, but you can't get that little extra thing with liquid smoke. At least nobody's been able to do it yet, though the Swedish Match has come the closest. So this is a snus. If you haven't tried it, you should. It's priced incredibly low. When I first heard about Islay, I assumed it was going to be at least $1 or more than General Onyx, putting it into the high $5 to $6 a can range, even over $50 for a 10-can roll. I don't know if Mo was drinking at the time, because he's always drinking at SnusCENTRAL.com, but Islay currently is on the site at $4.88 a can, 44 and change for a roll, 44.38 I think. And under the current Father's Day sale that's over June 15th, you can actually get 15 cans of Islay whiskey portion for the 10-can roll price of $44.38. End of commercial. Got to pay for this somehow. When I want to address the elephant in the room. When I wrote about Islay and I started using words like fire-cured tobacco and fermentation, a lot of people got worried. I got a lot of emails saying, hey, isn't that how American moist snuff is made? Won't the nitrosamines, the TSNA levels, be very high, making it very carcinogenic? TSNAs play a role in how safe or unsafe a tobacco product is. In the case of cigarettes, it's not as much the TSNAs as the 6,000 toxic chemicals that you suck into your lungs once you light the cigarette, which makes it so deadly. I contacted my old friend, and I'm sure many of you know him, Brad Rodew. He's a doctor of dentistry, actually, but he got in it. He's a specialist in oral cancer, became very dedicated to the reduced harm tobacco movement, has done an enormous amount of studies, talks. He has his own blog, Tobacco Truth, which is worth looking at for detailed information. And I asked Brad if he had any current TSNA numbers on the moist tobacco products out there now, including snus, because I did have the latest numbers from Conny on Islay. It seems, Brad said, that it's in 5-year increments people put out reports on TSNA levels. So the latest numbers I have generally are from the 2007 range, and then I have some numbers that I know from different manufacturers of more current. Let me give you a perspective. We'll start with moist snuff, dipping tobacco in America. The TSNA levels on that are generally 8.1 to 35.7 parts per million. Copenhagen Original, as a reference point, is, or was in 2007, 10.8 parts per million. Now, Swedish Match has a scale called Gothiatex scale, part of their proprietary manufacturing process that basically everybody uses in rating TSNA levels. The scale, I use the conservative version of the scale, which runs 1 to 5 parts per million. Brad and some others use the full scale, which is 1 to 10. But I like 1.5 better. And when I first started using and writing about snus in 2007, there were snuses pushing 3.0 parts per million, and the manufacturers were looking at that and saying, we need to address that because it's effectively over the halfway mark to the 5 parts per million. American Camel snus back then was 2.1 to 2.5 parts per million. General snus, conversely, was, depending on the type used, 0.7 to 1.6 parts per million. Everybody else was generally less than either 2.8 or less. Today, typically, Swedish snus is almost exclusively under 2.0. Most are under 1.1 parts per million, and there are a number now that are under 0 parts per million. The Swedish match snuses are generally 0.0 something. V2 Tobacco's Thunder Snus is 0.00 something. So the numbers are low to the point of being insignificant, effectively. And if you're under 2, I'm not concerned about it. I don't think you should. Islay Whiskey, and this was interesting. Connie said it depends on how he's playing with the tobacco mix. That affects the TSNA levels, and explains in some cases why American moist snuff is so much higher because of the grade of tobacco used, if you will. But Islay Whiskey basically ranges between 1.4 and 1.75 parts per million. I'm fine with that. I was using snuses that were higher than that when I first started using snuses. I was afraid it was going to be much higher. I'm relieved. More importantly, in 1970, the Swedish National Food Agency, which is effectively Sweden's version of our FDA, they decided to regulate snus in Sweden as a food product. All the ingredients had to be food quality grade, all the additives and all the flavorings, and there were limits to how much of certain substances could be present in the snus. All of that applies to any snus manufactured within the country of Sweden. Well, Islay Whiskey is manufactured in Sweden and thus complies with the Swedish FDA's assessment of a legitimate and safe snus product. So let not your heart be troubled. Enjoy your Islay Whiskey. I do. Now, aside from the white portion version and loose portion version of Islay Whiskey, another by Conny Andersson snus is going to be coming out this year, which is pretty exciting. Back when Conny was making the Carduce products for Swedish Match, his favorite year for Carduce, his favorite version, which coincidentally was mine, was Carduce Guatemala 2009, which was a rum-based snus. Well, guess what? The new snus coming out this year is called La Morenita, and it is rum-based, specifically Zacapa rum, which is an excellent rum. And he's using, if you can imagine this, dark chocolate from the Caribbean as a flavoring. It enhances the rum enhances it. And then when you go to the tobacco, he's using a black sweet Maduro tobacco from Mexico called San Andrés. And he's combining that with Ometepa, which is a Nicaraguan snus that has a strong taste of nectar. Putting all that together, and this also will be fire cured, slow fermented, and it will be barrel aged in barrels from Nicaragua, and we are talking about an absolutely unbelievable description. The artwork on the box is also going to be just as unique and just as special, and Conny is just as particular as he was with Islay Whiskey. One of Sweden's top and most talented tattoo artists is going to actually be designing and is designing the can graphics. Connie's seen the first draft and he's very, very happy. He describes this as, I don't quite understand it, to be honest with you, but he says La Morenita is going to be a sensual, smart, and hard-nosed Modesty Blaze Carmencita product. I'm not quite sure what that tastes like or means or looks like, but I can't wait to find out. There are two more by Conny Andersson snoozes potentially coming out this year, hopefully, or next year. One is whiskey based. Connie is, because that's how Connie is. And the other is not. I can't tell you about either one of them because the contracts have not been signed with the people they need to be signed with. So just keep that in the back of your mind. As soon as Connie clears it, I will be the first one here to tell you all about them. It is so good to have Conny Andersson back making snus again. I can't emphasize that enough. Those of you that like Odin Snus and the snoozes at GN Tobacco, GNT manufactures the Islay Whiskey portion for Connie, by Conny Andersson brand. Connie, as part of his arrangement with GNT, also did some tweaking to the Odin's recipes and tobaccos about a year ago. And I personally noticed a huge step up in the Odins, in flavor quality. So Connie has been not only good for the premium snus market, starting with Islay Whiskey, but has also been a godsend to value price snus like the Odins and the Old Ving and the other products, primarily the Odins, that GNT makes. GNT is a very good friend of SnusCENTRAL, and I want to give a shout out to Gevorg. He's been very forthcoming with information and answering my questions when I've written about his previous snoozes. We got off to a rocky start, but we're doing really good now, and I'm happy with what they're doing. I think Odin's and Old Ving fill a definite niche, and Mo tells me they're very popular at SnusCentral.com, at the snus store. Islay, again, is just the best thing to happen to snus since Carduce went away in 2012. Maybe even a little earlier, because I wasn't personally that impressed with the 2012 version. So Connie is back. We have two new versions of Islay Whiskey to look forward to this year. We have potentially two completely different snoozes down the road, and in between we're gonna have La Morenita, a rum-based snus made the Conny Andersson way, which is the way snus should be made, fine snus. Thanks for watching, and whatever you're using right now, enjoy your snus. I'm Larry Waters.